May I come in, sir?
Please come in. Yes.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Shishir Gupta.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Shishir, can you tell us about yourself very briefly, about your background, academic background primarily, and what have you been doing after 2013, after you did your BTech from IIT, and something about your hobbies?
My name is Shishir Gupta and I am from Jaipur, Rajasthan. And after completing my schooling from Jaipur, I did my BTech in Chemical Engineering from IIT Bombay. And thereafter I got my campus placed and I went abroad. In Abu Dhabi I have served as an oil and gas consultant engineer. For 2 years I have worked there. After that I came back to India and I started preparing for civil services. Right now I am currently fully devoting my time to civil services preparation. Apart from that, I am also helping students over here to solve the previous year maths problems because my optional is mathematics, so I am helping them out. And my hobbies are like playing cricket, and also I look up into the innovative pedagogical practices which have been going on in like some NGO has been carrying it out or some international institute has been carrying it out.
Then I am tempted to ask you about your coming to or deciding to take these exams after giving a gap or maybe serving in corporate sector as well. So is it an afterthought that after you served in the corporate sector that you decided, or was it a pre-planned thing? If yes, then why did you start preparing so late?
Sir, actually I was after clearing my JEE exam and getting into the job, I was very happy because this is something like I was getting good package in the job as well. But then I got in touch with a friend of mine again, and my school friend, he was working for this TFI NGO, Teach for India NGO, and he was doing a fellowship over there, and through him I got in touch with this girl child Zia, and I started financing her education from there. So at that time, it was somewhere in 2014, I started reading about the education sector as well, and that was the year when many reports were coming out because it was the 5-year implementation of the RTE Act. So the ASA report came out, and there was a report of KPMG as well. So that's when I started wondering how can I help and give my bit in a more personal manner, in more efficient way than I was doing right there by just financing the education of a single girl. So that's when I even talked to my father, who himself had appeared in the state services examination during his days, and so that's when I decided I'll go for this IS preparation.
So while you were in IT Bombay.
Yes, sir.
You were a hostler?
Yes, sir.
In Powai?
Yes, sir.
So tell me, you for 4 years must have stayed in that area. Powai is relatively a good location, good place. But the rest of the Bombay, areas around Powai, and even Powai, Chandivali has a lot of slums. Slums have always been there.
Yes.
But in these 4 years, have you noted that Bombay, while urbanization has increased, the city is gradually on the path of decay? Most part of Bombay, I am not talking of. Powai is one of the, I would say, oasis in that. You agree? So while urbanization is happening, what do you think Bombay should do now?
So the reason why when you say the Bombay is decaying, or the Mumbai as of now, so I think there is it is not just limited to the thought process related to Mumbai. We see that there is a skewed development. The migration which is taking place is from the states which are less developed, and at the same time the migration is taking place at a faster rate, and the infrastructure development is not taken to that pace as compared to the migrations. So that is the reason that we are seeing people who are living in slums, and they are also less educated. The people who are living in slums, they have less skills. So this thing, I think they are unable to speak out for their rights as well. And when we see that what Bombay should, Mumbai should do, I think they should focus on building the infrastructure Secondly, I think the outskirts of Bombay, they need to be developed so that the congestion or the pressure which the Mumbai city is facing as of now, that can be reduced to a certain extent.
Now tell me, on one hand we have Bombay and then you have Delhi. Why is it that Bombay, the pollution level in Bombay is never as bad as Delhi? Both are metros, they have almost equal population, resident, issues are also the same. So why is Delhi always in the news and Bombay doesn't get polluted?
So I think the reason of pollution can be attributed to the geography. Mumbai, the entire city is the coastal area. So we have the sea breeze and the land breeze which takes place, and so this continuous flow of the air, this leads to less pollutant development in the Mumbai region. While when we see the Delhi region, the topography of Delhi is such that it's at a lower level when it's compared to the nearby areas, and during the winter season we see a spike in the pollution in Delhi, and because there is a stagnation of air, because air is coming from the northern plains as well, from the western side as well in the terms of westerlies, and the stubble burning which takes place in the Haryana and Punjab region, that also kind of contributes to the pollution level in Delhi.
President Trump visited India recently,
Yes, sir.
and there's this sort of a big thing and a lot of write-ups about India and the US coming closer and things like that. So what is bringing the two countries together at this point in time?
Sir, the US president, he wants to take back USA to the glory it was a century ago, or maybe like during the times of 1820s, where it was seen more of a protectionist, and he wants to protect the interest of the US. But at the same time, he wants to protect the interest in the Indo-Pacific region as well, and there he wants to have a stable partner, a global leader, which can as well help the country, the US, counter the China's influence to a certain extent. So at this point of time, India, I mean, it's a rising global power. It has a very strong navy, and it has a huge command here in the area. And so I think that is one. That are the reasons that the U.S. president is looking at India, and also from the Indian side, I believe that we have come to an understanding that we cannot counter the regional players, like China is extending its arms into the Indian Ocean region, and it's flouting the international norms like free Indo-Pacific under the UN clause agreements. So that can be seen as the reasons why India is also kind of moving towards the US in the present time.
So that is in the domain of strategic balancing, or whatever we can call it. There must be other issues that bind the two countries together.
Sir, the other few reasons, like one is the Indian diaspora which is living in the US. That is one of the reasons. Like we have been with the coming of the present government, we have been reaching out to the diaspora. Secondly, energy interest as well, because we have been importing now the gas and petrol from the US. So because the West Asian countries, they provide petrol and this crude oil and the gas to India and the other Asian countries at a premium price. So we are kind of reducing our dependence on the West Asian region as well in terms of energy, which is kind of volatile in the present age.
How about trade? Is that important?
Yes, the trade is important, and it is all on the rise as well. Like mainly in the defense of, as of now, I will say, because in the other sectors like where we export it to the US, they have been like protectionist tendencies from the US side. We have seen various disputes going on in the WTO panel as well, in between India and the US.
WTO was formed some years back, and before that there was another organization, which WTO is a kind of let's say a child of that earlier organization. Do you remember what was that?
So it was GATT, General Agreement on Tariff and Trade.
It was GATT. It was on trade and tariff. Yeah, General Agreement on Trade and Tariff. Now, what has happened to WTO that today the WTO is sort of kind of has lost its primacy in the decision making or the policy formulation in the international trading regime.
Sir, when WTO was formed, it was more the kind of unipolar world which we were seeing. Like in the 1990s, after the disintegration of the USSR, WTO was formed in 1995 somewhere. So, but now when we see there are many regional players that have come to the fore, like China has been on China's growth has been on the rise. India is also kind of challenging certain decisions taken by the developed countries in the WTO. So it has become kind of difficult to build consensus, and also the coercive tendencies of the developed countries have come to a halt because of the rise of these regional players. And so I think that is the reason why, and the reason that still if you want to go ahead with any dispute settlement or any of the panel members appointment, US is still as a hegemony. So that is the reason why WTO has lost the dispute panel mechanism as of now, because the US has stopped the appointment of the judges. So secondly, there are many regional and like agreements that have come, and there is where countries engage with each other and on their respective terms, and that is much easier to have consensus in these smaller organizations as compared to WTO. So
what are biofuels and where India stands in biofuels? Which country has taken lead and what are our policies on biofuels?
So biofuel is the fuel that can be obtained from the biomass, maybe animal waste or animal oil or fat or maybe plant oil. And I don't know about which country has taken a lead in the biofuel production, but India, we have consistently we have recently come up with the policy, national biofuel policy. We have also started PM Jeevan Yojana, where we are giving viability gap funding to the 2G bioethanol refineries, and in the biofuel policy we have also kind of segregated the kind of biofuels which will be there, and we have also given a boost to the different raw materials which can be used in the biofuel production. So our target is about to have a blending of 10% by 2022, and in the policy they have changed it to like somewhere around 20% by 2030. So
30 or 40?
yes, 30 it is. As per the policy, it is 2030. So, I mean, I don't know exactly like what is the present status of the biofuel in the country, but yes, we have been on the rise. Like we have recently tested our biofuel jet for the first time, and both the engines were filled with the biofuel biofuel blended this fuel. So,
is there any proposal to set up refineries in this policy?
so I'm not aware of the refineries which I'm not aware of the refineries which have been talked of in the policy.
Okay. You must have heard about cryogenic engines.
Yes, sir.
From a chemical engineering point of view, what are the challenges in cryogenic engine which we have developed? Because no country has given us that technology, but we have developed our own. What do you think is which different technology we have developed for cryogenic engine?
So I'm not aware of the technology in the cryogenic sector.
What fuel we are using?
Sorry, sir. I'm not.
Why do we use the word cryo?
So it's below 0 degrees Celsius. So
Low
yes,
low
very low temperature it is.
Okay. My last question is, you are interested in cricket.
Yes, sir.
We are using different type of cricket balls. What is the difference between red ball and white ball?
So the difference is in the red ball, it contains its shine for a longer duration because we are using a grease on the red ball.
Longer duration, how many hours or how many overs that ball can swing?
So it can swing for like even after 30 overs it can swing, because it can develop reverse swing after that, and that is not the case with the this white ball. And so,
Why did you change to white ball? Because earlier we were using only red balls.
so it is because of the sight, like the sight screen also, and also the uniform which our players are using in the Test cricket, that is a white color. So at the visibility aspect from the player's perspective, the batsman perspective, so we have started using colored balls in the cricket.
And we have also started playing with the pink ball.
Yes, sir, that is on the experimental basis we have started, and it increased in the day and night test matches we have started using pink ball because of the visibility aspect there as well, and we are using a different seam on that ball, so that increase and pink ball as well. It retains the shine for a longer duration.
Different seams.
Sorry, sir.
How to achieve different seams?
This in terms of bowling, like.
Yeah, bowling.
So it depends on the your speed, the bowler's speed. It also depends on the wind speed as well, and it like on the way the bowler is holding the ball. Like in general saying, it goes toward the rougher side because of the turbulence that is created from the seam position, the way you are holding it. So it tilts it towards the rougher side. But when it comes to the old ball, the reverse swing is seen as that in the old ball towards the shinier side, because the turbulence is even created by the surface of the ball rather than the seam only.
Who is the best Indian player?
So I consider like all-time best player. I consider him to Rahul Dravid.
Rahul Dravid?
Yes, sir.
Not Sachin Tendulkar?
I mean, yes, Sachin Tendulkar is no doubt one of the best players, but my personal preference goes to Rahul Dravid.
So what actually has made you to decide that Dravid is the number one player?
So it's not just about the records which a player has made, but the kind of passion and perseverance and dedication he brings to the. Sorry, sir.
There must be some reason.
Yes, I like the kind of shots he plays. I mean, like the favorite shot, I mean, from my perspective, is the square cut which he plays. Which
You are
I.
also fond of this.
Yes, I'm also fond of that shot. I mean, like I have watched that shot various times over the YouTube. Yes, I mean, and.
For this year in the chemistry, the Nobel Prize has been given. So what is the area and who has received it and what are its implications?
Sorry, sir. I haven't gone through the Nobel Prize winners as of now. I haven't gone through the list.
See, it is going to have a very profound implication on the technology, on the economy, the world over. So some of the disruptions which are taking place.
Sorry, sir. Sorry, sir. I'm not aware of it.
What are lithium-ion batteries and how they are different from conventional ones, lead-acid batteries?
So lithium-ion batteries, they use some sort of not pure lithium they are using, but they are using some variant of lithium with the oxide or something, and they retain their efficiency for a longer duration, and they don't when they are keep stranded, they don't lose out on their efficiency as the lead batteries does. So they can give up more efficiency wise. They can run for a longer duration when it comes to like how many times they can run up a circuit. So it's around in like 5,000 times when it is compared to the lead ion batteries. It's like 500 or 1,000 times only.
The charge time, the time it takes to charge. Lithium-ion battery charge much faster.
Yes.
Yes. Conventional lead-acid batteries means you have to wait for a considerable period of time.
And it can be reused as well. Lithium-ion batteries they can be continued to be used, and lead batteries. I mean, even after being recharged, they lose their efficiency. They keep on losing their efficiency.
Basically, for 3-4 years you can use your lead-acid batteries. What is supercharged capacitor?
Sorry, sir, I don't know.
Okay, what is a superconductor and how it is going to impact our electrical industry?
So superconductor, as the name suggests, is some like a conductor which has very low resistance, and so it allows for like better conductive properties of a particular substance in which it is used, and
So at what temperatures it happens?
So it can be at higher temperature, but recently they have come up with some technology where they are using it at low temperatures as well. I'm forgetting the name of that.
Earlier it was at a very low temperatures. Now
Yes.
higher temperature, but still it is cryogenic conditions. So the word cryo means still cryogenic temperature conditions.
Can we
are
have superconductivity at room temperature?
So there is one.
What should we have? What should we try to have?
So there was recently there was a discovery and they have come up with some element in which they have seen superconductivity at room temperature, but I am unable to recall the name of that.
It's not on the industrial scale.
What are coral reefs and how they are important for climatic change point of view?
So coral reef are like the algae, microscopic algae. They are mostly underground, and they can be blue or green algae, and they can be like benefits of coral reef as well, and there are some harmful coral reefs as well. But from the benefit side, if I speak, they are very much important because they provide they are the largest natural source of calcium, and they are also various pharmaceuticals or these ingredients can also be obtained from that, and they are the largest source of fisheries and other aquatic food source items which humans consume.
So what is the threat to the coral reefs?
So they can only sustain in a particular temperature range, like somewhere around 25 or 27 degrees Celsius. And so with the rise in the temperature and the global warming we are seeing, so we are seeing that these coral reef are kind of getting destabilized. So that is one of the reasons, because with the rise in temperature, the acidity in the ocean water increases. So the calcium content decreases, and so does the coral reefs.
This calcium content how it decreases?
So because
When the warmer temperatures, they don't survive. Bleaching happens.
no, because
Because of bleaching, they start decaying.
yes, sir. Bleaching is something that is happening, but at the same time, with the increase in the temperature, the acidity of the ocean is increasing. Those are carbonate ion, they are getting converted into the bicarbonate ion. So the CaCO3, which is required for this formation of coral reefs, we are not seeing that. And the
Are there any measurements on pH values of the seawater?
not
Studies or some scientific evidence?
like from the books what I have read, like they are saying that it might have increased by 0.1 or 0.2 degrees pH, the pH of the water, but I'm not aware of the exact studies which have been conducted.
In normal lakes, if the temperature rises more, so pH value will change.
No, it's a long-term process. I mean, it takes thousands of years if we talk about the normal carbonate cycle which carries on the water, seawater as well. So it's a long-term process. But with the intervention of the humans, like because of the increase of the CO2, because of the anthropogenic reasons, that cycle has actually shortened in time from 10,000 1 lakh years.
Industry 4.2.
So industry 4.0, we can say it's the combination of physical, biological, and the digital aspects of what we have been seeing till now. Because so it's like building upon the ecosystem which was created by the third industrial revolution.
So biological, when you say how biology comes into picture?
So through the IoT, when you say Internet of Things, so this is something like the chips which are used, and they can be seen as sending signals from one device to the other device.
These are mostly sensors. Biology, how does biology come into picture? Okay, there are sensors, there are communication networks, and then there is a processing unit. These are only the three components.
So, but if we talk about the interaction between the humans or the from the biological, we can see we humans we have started interacting with the physical and this digital aspects of this IR 4.0. We have started using robots or drones in delivery of, or maybe in delivery of services or conducting.
Biological kind of thing, biological bronze is basically a physical and your
Now, on the home front, we are having protests and agitations. On the external front, there is a, souring of diplomatic relations, and also perception about India not doing the civil. You think the bringing up of this law, India has been in a lose-lose situation?
Sir, I think first of all, we need to focus on what is the purpose of CAA. It's an enabling act, not a disabling act. It's to fast track the process of providing citizenship to the persecuted minorities of 3 different countries. Now, the second thing, when we see that there have been so much protest on the international front, if we talk about, first thing we see that even the majority of the Muslim majority countries like Saudi Arabia, UAE, they have kind of said that it's an internal matter of India. So, second thing, the protest we have seen is from Turkey, Malaysia and Pakistan, and we can see that this Turkey and Malaysia, they are trying to create a different arm because they think that their Muslim interests have not been served well under the leadership of Saudi Arabia and UAE. So, and the third thing, the resolution which have been passed by the US bodies which talks about the international freedom, religious freedom. So that is not a governmental body that involves people from all the front in the US, but that is not a government body. So I think souring of relation I don't see as of now, because souring could have been there if the majority of the Muslim majority countries would have showed apprehensions regarding this act.
What about President Trump making a statement about religious freedom? What about Bangladesh Prime Minister showing her concern about the fact that India presumes that there is, harassment and persecution of people of Indian religions? Or do you think that even you can afford to start relations with few countries, even if there is not a majority?
No, sir. I don't think we should. We should just sideline their concerns. First thing which I remember was when the CAA Act was passed, that earlier our government has mentioned that it is in the Assam case, it was the judicial, it was a process that was carried out under the judiciary. Now they were asking for a written confirmation from the Indian side. Now, even if we don't provide the written confirmation, I think if we carry out the process in a very streamlined manner, I think we can take care of their concerns. And yes. So from the home front, I think we have to engage with the people. The ministry has to engage with the people, and I think they have been doing it by frequently carrying out this FAQs they have been putting in the public domain. So, but we have to see how things unfold, because the majority of the concerns has come up with the not just the CAA but the addition of NRC to it, and which our Prime Minister has denied that it is not as the agenda of the government at the present stage. So, and there have been it is already there in the Act, Citizenship Act. Only the rules which have to be framed. So there is no further steps taken by the government to frame the rules. So that has to be kind of communicated to the people in a very effective manner.
You hail from Rajasthan.
Yes, sir.
Rajasthan is a tourism hub.
Yes, sir.
What are the USPs of Rajasthan which you may not find elsewhere in, or maybe primarily the unique selling propositions of Rajasthan in terms of verticals of tourism? Which are the areas where Rajasthan is unique as in relation to other states of India?
There are few areas where Rajasthan holds unique position. Firstly, majority of the population of Rajasthan is in the rural areas, mostly 70% or something. So we can, and if we talk about the living lifestyles as well, it varies very significantly when we come from the western side of Rajasthan to the eastern side. So one thing is we can promote the desert tourism or the rural tourism in Rajasthan, and desert tourism can be a part of it, where we can also cater to the adventure tourism like it takes place in Dubai or Abu Dhabi with the help of all-terrain vehicles. Secondly, there are so many forts in Rajasthan because Rajasthan has been like the king of land of kings. So in almost every district, we can find a fort which has its unique identity. Then also because of being under the rules of Rajputs for a longer duration, we have so many temples and of different deities. So that can also be promoted under the tourism sector. And fourthly, we have certain specific things like Rajasthan on wheels or Palace on wheels. These kind of trains or specific these things can be promoted, keeping in mind the views of the tourists which have been come. Like we can make them affordable and also.
We have asked you
What about movies?
Yes, sir. Sorry, sir. I forgot it with I combined it with forts itself.
anything which we may have missed out, any topic, any subject on which you would like us to ask a question?
Sir, my parents, they are in the education sector, and my whole hobby as well is it's one of my interests because I've been pursuing it for a year and a half. So
the new education policy, which is still to come out, has been under a lot of question marks are being raised and protests have started even with the draft form. Now, why do you think this is happening?
Sir, the earlier protest which came out soon after the policy was announced was because of the 3-language formula. Because the southern states, they were of the opinion that the government is trying to impose the Hindi language on the southern states through this policy, but it was later on rectified by the panelist like Mr. K. Kasturi Rangan, who was the head of the policy, and he also came out in the media. He has given various interviews on that it is not the case, that we are not imposing any language, specifically the Hindi language was touted earlier. And apart from that, there have been there have been points regarding that there is no action plan which has been suggested in the policy, no funds which have been talked on in the policy, how they are planning to have these funds to actually implement the policy on ground. Then there is something they've combined the early childhood care and education, which comes under Ministry of Women and Child Development within the RTE Act, and which comes under the purview of the HRD ministry. So there are apprehensions regarding that as well, how that can be carried out. Apart from that, there has been no talk regarding how to improve the implementation of the RTE Act, because as of now only 12% of the schools in the country, they are RTE compliant. So that is also one of the reason why it is coming under flag.
Thank you, Shishir. We'll call you again after a few minutes. You can proceed out and we'll call you again.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.